Is Pandemic 2020, an AM 970 The Answer special report with your host, Joe Piscopo. Brought to you by Balance of Nature, helping your body heal itself.
This week, it's going to get bad.
Well, we've never had a threat like this, and the coordinated response has been, there are a number of adjectives to describe it. Impressive, I think, is one of them.
Stay on top of this fast-breaking story. What's going on with work, travel, medical, food, real estate, exercise. Get the latest breaking news right here with your host, Joe Piscopo.
Hey, it's Joe on the radio. Good morning. Happy Tuesday. You got this. You got this. And we got Dr. Stephen Greer for you at the 5 minutes after 9 o'clock on this Tuesday, May 12th. Great to have you with us. Any questions that you have, 877-970-2999. This is the man that was ahead of the curve. He's a practicing surgeon, pioneering how hospitals care for the elderly. He also became a Wall Street analyst, portfolio manager 20 years ago, believe it or not. He is the author of the book, Rules to Stop Radicals. Now, you can have your health or healthcare questions, or you know what, finance questions too with Dr. Greer. 877-970-2999. Hey, Dr. Stephen, so great to have you back on the show. Welcome, and how are you doing this morning, my friend?
Hey, great. Thanks for having me back.
You the man. You are so the man, Dr. Greer. I got to tell you, I got to start right here. And I know, give us a call, and we're going to get into the issues of the day and what's happening. Dr. Greer, we played the audio when we talked about, and we talk about this every time we chat, when we talked about the coronavirus, COVID-19, oh my gosh, and you said, Joe, and you said in a casual term, we have drugs for that, and you talked about remdesivir. You were the first to talk about it, Dr. Greer, and you were the first to talk about hydroxychloroquine and Z-Pak. You were the first. And the question is this, Dr. Greer, why everybody was yelling for ventilators, when they should have been, and correct me if I'm wrong, sir, listening to you and getting the medicine for these poor people, right?
Yes. Very few medical doctors understand how to use a ventilator. It's a specialty that ICU doctors or trauma surgeons have to do. I happen to have done that training at Jackson Memorial in Miami and Bellevue, so I know that ventilators are tough to use, and they can more often than not hurt the patient. So I saw right away, like, whoa, ventilators aren't some cure. They're your last ditch use. And sure enough, we're now hearing that what they're doing in these high death rate hospitals is going through the motions because it's so politicized, putting people on ventilators to say they did it. But you've got interns or people who don't know what they're doing, and they're harming them. And so ventilators are a red herring, a distraction. And the only way to get around this virus is to cure it with a drug and then eventually come up with a vaccine. And so those are the things. And fortunately, we made a lot of progress there. We've got the antiviral remdesivir approved and a couple others in the works. So that's the way to get around this, because it is it's not a normal virus. And if you want to talk about that now, we can transition into that. I don't want to.
No, it's true. It's true. But let me go, if I could just stay on the hydroxychloroquine and the remdesivir. It's that I talked to my personal doc, and I said who's a great guy and just very very astute as an MD. I said, if I, God forbid, I'm going to go out and I get this COVID-19, do you have the drugs? He goes, Joe, they're almost impossible to find. I mean, so all of a sudden, my conspiratorial mind goes, well, are they holding it back for a reason? Because the hydroxychloroquine doesn't cost any. Remdesivir, I understand, because it's expensive and that sort of thing. But are they keeping it back? What's going on here, Dr. Greer?
Yeah, in New York, it got politicized. Cuomo took the opposite stance because Trump supported it. And so they are laughing at, mocking the use of hydroxychloroquine. So the patients going into Elmhurst and Wyckoff and all these high death rate hospitals and other places. Yeah. We're not, I've confirmed, I've spoken to doctors, and there's a lot of YouTube video for people in the front line. They're not getting the drugs. Which is a crime. And then, Governor Cuomo's handling of the nursing homes to send infected elderly back to nursing homes, knowing full well that those facilities were not capable of handling it, is a crime as well. And that's a growing scandal every day. Cuomo reversed his policy on that yesterday or the day before.
Yeah.
And that's going to be his downfall, as he knowingly killed thousands of elderly with a stupid policy.
Yeah, well, you've been saying that the U.S. attorney should investigate what happened in terms of those nursing home deaths?
Yeah, the only official with the real authority to do this is your Southern District U.S. attorney. And after you and I spoke one day later, people out, I forgot to look who it was. Some official in Long Island called for that. And then there's the New York State Assemblywoman. She's a Republican, and she was on Tucker Carlson 2 days later after we spoke, calling for. So, the U.S. prosecutor really needs to look into this, because it's not politics; it's now manslaughter. So,
goodness. Yeah, Assemblywoman Nicole Malliotakis, she's a friend of the show, and she's been all over this, Doctor. You're right. And before we talk about the different kind of virus, I got to ask you this, man. I see the phone calls. Hold for a second. 877-970-2999. This is the man. 2 months ahead of the curve, Dr. Stephen Greer. So you know what I did, Stephen? I saw this pandemic video. You know I'm talking about, oh my gosh, and it starts saying all these things, and it goes up against Dr. Fauci, and I know how you feel about Dr. Fauci. Then the Italians got mad at me because I started saying something about Dr. Fauci. I put this video out. Joe, you can't go up against Dr. Fauci. Let me ask you about this video that's out there. Is it conspiracy based? The pandemic, it goes against everything. And the question is this: why do they keep censoring this pandemic video, Dr. Greer?
Well, I haven't watched all of it. I watched about 5 minutes of it and bits and pieces, and then I watched videos meant to fact check and so forth. I think I know what's going on. Unfortunately, the video was made by a guy who's not very good at making documentaries, and it looked like a Saturday Night Live parody. It was really silly, and it did a disservice to. Maybe
that's why I liked it. Yeah, okay.
and she's a little kooky, but I got to tell you, all PhDs are kooky. Okay, so she's par for the course. Now, what I gleaned from that is now it's proven, and it's out. I'm going to tell you about it in a second. Is the United States, and I didn't say this earlier because I'm not crazy. I don't want to take on the spy agencies, but I can now say it because it's out there in Newsweek. Is the United States funds at least two labs in the United States, Fort Detrick and another one, and then we fund the Wuhan lab, the infamous Chinese Wuhan lab. We fund that with our tax dollars to create man-made dangerous viruses, okay? Now, they don't call them bioweapons. Anthony Fauci, in a 2011 op-ed in the Washington Post, said, it's all in the name of developing better drugs. Is his contorted logic, but it's highly, highly controversial. Just last week, the Washington Post had Harvard and Johns Hopkins guys saying we shouldn't do this kind of research. And so Anthony Fauci's lab, without a doubt, funded the Wuhan lab, which engineered this virus. And that's why I'd like, in 40 minutes, he's going before the U.S. Senate to testify. And I want to see if anyone has the guts to ask him that. Okay.
Because we gave $3.7 million to the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Bioweapon. Oh, my Lord. Yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah, now, coincidentally, that was going on for years, at least since 2011. But in 2014, Obama shut it down. Why? What happened in 2014? Ebola. Ebola is another one of these viruses that was engineered, okay? So Obama...
Right. Oh, jeez. Because Ebola as it was, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Greer, Ebola as it wasn't as contagious, but they tinkered with it a little bit.
Yes.
Oh, my God. Why do they keep doing it?
That's not conspiracy, okay? So that's why, and then probably totally unbeknownst to him in 2017 when Trump got in, Fauci probably pressured him and so forth. Whatever, they got the program back and running, okay? And this was a clueless Trump administration who was letting the Comey come in and So I mean, they took advantage of a president who was distracted by the Russia hoax and all this stuff, and they knew they could get away with it. So Fauci opens up his pet project again under the nose of Trump, knowing he could get away with it, knowing that Obama shut him down in 2014. This guy, read the 2011 Washington Post op-ed. I gave it to your producer. And in the Newsweek article that came out last week. This is in Newsweek. This is Washington Post. There's not. So you started off asking about pandemic. That video is a little shaky. Well, we don't need the video anymore. Just read the op-ed. It's right there.
Oh, man. And by the way, just full transparency, and to my Italian-American friends, Dr. Fauci is welcome on the show anytime. I mean, really, you can come on the show anytime, but he's busy now. He's testifying whatever he's doing down there in the Senate. By the way, Dr. Greer, before we go to the phone calls, different kind of virus. COVID-19 is a different kind of virus. What do you mean by that, sir?
It's not a normal flu that every year changes slightly in Mother Nature. This is specifically designed, and this is in the New England Journal this week, specifically designed to attack a receptor called ACE and so forth. And that's why it's so harsh on the lungs and kidneys, because those organs have that receptor. So this was engineered, and it's well known, and it's in the New England Journal, to go after a certain molecule, and that's why it's so deadly, and that's why it's tearing up the lungs. So this is not appearing to be your run-of-the-mill gradual mutation. This was engineered.
By that gal, but I don't know her name, the gal, the Chinese gal at the Institute of Virology, she engineered it. What? And I'm telling you, it reeks bioweapons to me, but I like conspiracy theories. I don't know, you know what I mean? But
now come on, it's not a conspiracy. If the military's doing it, why are they doing it? Come on.
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Steve. Yeah.
They're doing it under the excuse of, this will help us develop antiviral drugs, horse manure, come on.
Oh, my Lord. Let me go to, we have one of our favorite listeners on the phone, Charlie Finch. Professor, good morning. Do you have a question for the good doctor?
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, Dr. Greer. Dr. Greer, could there be a relationship between different blood types and the susceptibility to and the severity of COVID-19 in different individuals? Thank you, sir.
Great question,
yes,
Charlie.
Yes.
What do you think, doctor? Yeah.
Yes, without a doubt. That there's no question. Blood types is just a marker for different genetics. So we all have slightly different genetics and everything. And so we now know that the virus selectively goes after the ACE receptor on various tissues. And so some people are going to have different types of receptors. So, yes, that's why some people will just drop dead and it ravages their system, and others, the virus doesn't seem to be able to work. That's why. Yeah. The blood type is really just a way of looking at genetic markers on humans.
And Dr. Greer, they're using, correct me if I'm wrong, please, sir, is the blood thinners are now using, because once the blood clots, it attacks the lungs more voraciously, correct?
Yeah, well, who knows how or why, but for some reason the virus is messing up what they call the coagulation system. There's a very complex system in our body that keeps our blood watery and thin, but yet you won't bleed to death if you get injured. That's really complex if you think about it. So it's altering the coagulation pathway somehow. We don't know why. So people are getting blood clots, which is causing stroke and other wherever the blood clot is, heart attack, it's in the heart. So we're seeing strokes in young people, and that was in the New England Journal too. Is if you start to give them blood thinners, it seems to be effective. So another thing we should be giving these patients is blood thinners.
Blood thinner. And what about this? Before we let you go, Dr. Greer, your thoughts on this new inflammation disease we're seeing in children now?
Yeah. It's probably all related. It's a weird virus, and it's doing weird things, and so. Yeah,
we should track the kids though, because we don't know. Or are the number of cases within the children alarming to the point where we should be really concerned about watching where we take our children as much as we watch where we go?
I only know what you know from the paper, so I'm no expert at all. I haven't spoken to any doctors, but it seems to be rare. Who knows? I don't know.
Yeah, all right. Dr. Greer, thanks so much. You know what? You were so ahead of the curve. Yeah, you're the guy that talked about the drugs. You're the guy that talked about how to deal with this. I think, Dr. Greer, we could have saved tens of thousands of lives if people were listening to you, sir. When you said, here are the drugs, because you know what? Better safe than sorry. Oh, you can't take that? That's going to give you this. That I don't care. If I got the COVID-19, I'm going to take a shot with the hydroxychloroquine and the Z-Pack for crying out loud. So is there anything else that you could let us know that we should know about that you found out in your research, sir?
Well, yeah. The way to look at that is these decisions are made all the time. Should you give a drug or not? It's an ethical issue. Is giving the time nature. We don't have time to do a 3-year multi-center trial. We have plenty of good observational study. There is good science. It's called observational science. There's a lot of evidence that the drug works, hydroxychloroquine. Yes, it would be unethical to not give it. Should you give it to people, given that we know the safety of it? The drug's been around forever, 50 years. We know it's safe. Yeah. The balance of risk and benefit is clearly on this. So anyone not giving the drug, everyone out there should listen to this. You need to be your own medical advocate. You need to demand to have the drug, and you as the patient will get it. So just demand it, okay? Yeah. And your doctors, if your doctor's a jerk and tries to make you feel stupid, tell them I demand it, and that's what everyone should be doing. One other thing is I've talked about the scary nature of the virus. Yeah. Fortunately, it is true that the vast majority of us don't have this genetic susceptibility to the ACE molecule receptor, all that sort of stuff. So I still think the United States should be opening up work, and the whole home quarantine stuff is not a scientific smart thing to do. It makes no sense. It's not achieving anything. 80% of all New Yorkers who've gotten the disease, guess where they got it? In their home under quarantine. So it's not accomplishing anything. So we cannot increase deaths by shutting down the hospital system for 3 months. There's going to be 80,000 cancers that have not been diagnosed over the last 3 months. So we're causing more harm than good. So we got to stop the way we're handling this now. We're throwing stupidity onto stupidity. Stupid thing number one was Fauci creating the virus. Stupid thing number two is his shutting down of the nation. So we got to stop it. Yeah.
Dr. Stephen Greer, thanks so much. And Dr. Stephen, Google Dr. Stephen Greer, practicing surgeon, and also he knows Wall Street as good as anybody as well. Hey, Dr. Greer, thanks so much. Thanks for being ahead of the game, and please come back absolutely anytime, Dr. Greer. We love when you're here, sir.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, sir.